So let's say you just closed the deal of a lifetime. You finally joined the 3 Comma Club, and it's time for the ultimate status symbol, a Gulfstream G650ER. The sticker price is $70 million. You have the money, but you're smart. You don't pay cash. Instead, you go to a private bank, sign a few papers, and fly away. You think you own that jet. You think you've outsmarted the system by using other people's money. But 3 years later, while you're mid-flight over the Atlantic, your phone pings. It's a notification from your bank. The market value of your jet just dropped by 15% because a newer model was announced. The bank is now demanding $10 million in cash. You have 24 hours to pay, or when you land, the tail number will no longer belong to you. This is the margin call, and it is how banks legally steal assets from the wealthiest people on Earth. And to understand how this happens, we have to look at the part of the transaction no one sees, the difference between how you buy a car and how a billionaire buys a sky palace. Because for the ultra-rich, debt isn't a burden, it's a weapon, until the bank turns that weapon around. When a normal person buys a house or a car, they use credit-based lending. The bank looks at your salary, your credit score, and your history of paying bills. They give you a loan because they trust you to pay them back. But billionaires don't play by those rules. Many of them have very little income in the traditional sense. Their wealth is tied up in stocks, real estate, and companies, so they use asset-based lending. In this world, the bank doesn't care about your salary. They care about the collateral. If you want a $70 million jet, the bank looks at the jet itself as the guarantee. They lend you the money at a razor-thin interest rate, sometimes as low as 2 or 3%. On a $70 million loan, that's a massive win for the billionaire. They can keep their actual cash invested in the stock market, earning 10%, while paying the bank only 3%. They are essentially getting a private jet for free using the spread. But here is the catch that most people don't think about. When you buy a house with a mortgage, the bank can't take your house just because the housing market went down, as long as you keep making your monthly payments. In the world of billionaire jets, that protection doesn't exist. The entire deal is built on a loan-to-value ratio, or LTV. Usually, for a high-end aircraft, a bank will lend up to 70% or 80% of the plane's value. If the jet is worth $70 million, the bank lends you $50 million. The $20 million gap is the bank's safety cushion. But a jet is not a house. A house generally appreciates over time. A jet is a depreciating hunk of aluminum and carbon fiber that burns 5,000 worth of fuel an hour. It is a melting ice cube. The bank monitors the value of that jet every single quarter. They use third-party appraisers and market data to see what that specific model is selling for on the open market. And this is where the legal theft begins. Let's look at the market shock scenario. In the world of aviation, tech moves fast. When Bombardier or Gulfstream announces a new flagship with 500 miles more range or a quieter cabin, the old models, the ones billionaires currently own, instantly lose value. Sometimes they lose $10 million in value overnight. If your $70 million jet is suddenly only worth $55 million, your LTV ratio has just exploded. The bank's safety cushion has vanished. On paper, you haven't missed a single payment. You've been a perfect client. It doesn't matter. The contract you signed, the one your lawyers vetted, contains a covenant. It states that if the LTV exceeds a certain threshold, the loan is in technical default. This triggers the margin call. The bank calls your family office. They don't ask for a conversation, they issue a demand. You must rebalance the loan. This means you either have to hand over $10 million in cash immediately to bring the loan balance down, or you have to pledge more assets, like $15 million worth of Tesla or Amazon stock, as additional collateral. But what if the market is down?
Isn't the market down though?
What if your stocks are also crashing at the same time the jet market is softening? This is the wealth trap. If you can't produce the cash or the extra stock in 24 to 48 hours, the bank has the legal right to accelerate the loan. This means the entire $50 million is due now, not over the next 10 years. Now. When you can't pay $50 million on a Tuesday afternoon, the bank moves in. And they don't do it with a tow truck. They do it with the International Registry of Mobile Assets. Every high-end jet is registered in a database in Dublin, Ireland, under what's called the Cape Town Convention. This is an international treaty that makes it incredibly easy for banks to repossess planes across borders. The bank simply files a Deregistration Power of Attorney, IDERA. Within hours, that jet is legally grounded. It cannot take off. The pilots, who are often employed by management companies that answer to the lenders, are told to stay home. The bank sends a Repo crew, specialized pilots and mechanics, to the hangar. They change the locks, take the logs, which are worth millions on their own, and fly the jet to a neutral location. The Billionaire is left standing on the tarmac, and the bank now owns a $55 million asset for the $50 million they lent out. They sell the jet at a fire sale price to another billionaire, cover their loan, and keep the fees. The Billionaire lost their $20 million down payment. They lost their jet. And they have no legal recourse because they didn't lose the jet. They failed to maintain the value of the bank's collateral. But why would banks do this? Wouldn't they rather have the interest payments? Not always. To understand the bank's perspective, we have to look at the hidden costs of jet ownership that the bank is actually subsidizing. Just like our airline example, a private jet has a cost of existence. A Gulfstream G650 costs about $3.5 million a year just to park and maintain, even if it never flies a single mile. Hangarage, $100,000 plus. Insurance, $150,000 plus. Crew salaries, $500,000 plus. Maintenance reserves, $1.5 million plus. When a billionaire hits a rough patch, the first thing they stop paying isn't the bank, it's the maintenance. They skip the engine mid-life inspection. They defer the C-check. To a bank, a jet without a perfect maintenance log is a dead asset. If those logs aren't updated, the jet's value can drop by 30% instantly. The bank steals the jet not because they want to be in the aviation business, but because they are terrified the billionaire will trash the collateral by being cheap on the upkeep. It is a pre-emptive repo. And this leads us to the most satisfying part of the business, the repo specialists.
A compulsive gambler out of Reno who's defaulted on its very expensive Tesla citation.
Do it! What the hell's going on here?
Unfortunately, we're here to take your plane.
What are you doing? Let's legs! What are you doing? Come on! What are you doing with my plane?
There are firms whose entire job is to track billionaire jets via ADS-B transponders. They know where the jet is 24/7. They wait for the jet to land in a friendly jurisdiction like the US, the UK, or France, where the Cape Town Convention is strictly enforced. They wait for the billionaire to go to a meeting or a gala, then they strike. They serve the papers to the flight department, and by the time the billionaire gets back to the airport, their limousine in the sky is being towed to a different hangar. But there's an even deeper layer to this. The legal theft isn't just about the physical plane, it's about the cross-collateralization. Most people who own jets also have art loans or yacht loans with the same private bank. These contracts often have cross-default clauses. If you get a margin call on your jet and you can't pay it, the bank can declare you in default on your yacht and your Picasso collection too. They can trigger a wealth avalanche. One bad quarter in the private jet market can allow a bank to liquidate a billionaire's entire lifestyle to protect the bank's balance sheet. So, why do billionaires keep doing it? Why not just pay cash and avoid the risk? Because of tax code section 168K. In the United States, for a long time, you could bonus depreciate 100% of a private jet's value in the first year if you used it for business. If a billionaire makes $100 million in profit from their company, they buy a $70 million jet. They write off the whole $70 million against their income. They effectively pay zero in taxes and get a free jet. The bank knows this. The bank sells this strategy to them. The bank says, don't pay us cash. Use our debt to wipe out your tax bill. The billionaire agrees, thinking they've won, but they've just handed the bank the keys to their life. The bank gets the interest, the bank gets the tax-advantaged client, and the bank gets the right to seize the asset the moment the market wobbles. In the end, the private jet industry is a giant game of musical chairs. As long as the economy is booming and jet prices are stable, everyone is happy. The billionaire looks rich, and the bank looks profitable. But the moment the music stops when interest rates rise or a new Gulfstream model is released, the bank is the only one with a seat. The billionaire realizes that they didn't buy a jet. They just rented it from a bank that has the power to take it back the moment it becomes inconvenient for them to hold the loan. It's the ultimate irony of the ultra-wealthy. The more assets they own through debt, the less they actually own. The bank isn't your friend, it isn't your partner. It's a landlord that can evict you at 45,000 feet. So next time you see a private jet flying overhead, don't just think about the fuel or the champagne inside. Think about the margin call, lurking in the fine print of a contract in a mahogany office on Wall Street. Because in the world of high finance, nothing is ever truly bought. It's only on loan until the house decides it's time to collect. And if you've ever wondered how the same thing happens with 300-foot super yachts, where the repo involves actual maritime law and international waters, that's a whole other story.